Alrighty, guys, gals, non-binary pals, welcome back to the channel. Thank you so much for clicking on today's video. Again, if you're watching this, I'm actually streaming this live on Twitch, so if you want to come join us, click the link in the description. We have a ton of fun. But yeah, let's get into the video. So today we are going to be talking about a video that Dr. Mike actually put up recently. If you're not familiar with Dr. Mike, he's obviously a doctor. He makes a lot of videos on YouTube. Kind of, I'm reacting to a react. Oh, it's crazy, right? So he does a lot of reaction-based content, kind of talking about certain things that are popular in pop culture, and then kind of sharing his experience as a doctor. And sometimes he talks about weight loss, people that are overweight, and sometimes the crazy TLC shows that show very, very overweight people. And that's what today's video is about. So the title of this video that Dr. Mike uploaded is The Grim Reality of Life at 800 Pounds. So in this video, he kind of goes over a person, one of the women that were on My 600 Pound Life, and he shares his thoughts on the whole kind of process. So we're just going to kind of hear what he has to say and say what we have to say.
My 600 Pound Life, I'm curious how it compares to the other show that we've watched, Family by the Ton. Hate the names of these shows, but let's see what it's got. Huge thank you to ZipRecruiter for sponsoring this video. Be well.
1, 2, 3.
Repositioning is of utmost importance, especially when you're overweight to this degree, because you start putting pressure on certain areas of your skin, your muscles, your bones. You could develop pressure ulcers. Those can get infected, becomes very, very complicated to treat.
I have no life. My legs can't even hold my weight anymore.
That's why it's so important when we talk about someone being obese or being overweight, we talk about their quality of life being equally as important as their state of health and their risks that they face.
And the other thing that's so crazy about this is that it's so different from person to person, because there are people that are that large, right? Like Casey, he kind of showed him a little bit earlier, who was on the show Family by the Ton. He was probably just as large, but he could still move. Granted, not a lot, but he could still walk. And there are some people that are much smaller than this woman that can't walk, and they're, 600 pounds. So it really is dependent. And there are some people that are way smaller than that still can't walk, right? So that's why when a lot of times people will say, well, I had this experience and this is why things should be the way that they are. This is why things should change. It's like your experience is not everyone else's experience. And I mean, I can't imagine being at this point. Like, this has to be so hard every single day.
My weight has condemned me to this bed. I can't do anything. I can't even bathe myself.
It's really important that you clean within the skin folds as well, because bacteria can get trapped there. It's a dark, moist environment most of the time, and as a result, fungi thrive in that type of environment. So not only do you have to wash it well, but you have to dry it well as well.
I have.
So even when I was at my biggest, which wasn't nearly as big as that, I would get like rashes under my belly. Because I had a relatively big belly, but I would get rashes and I would have to use baby powder. Actually, I remember this, especially because I live in San Diego. It's pretty hot in the summer, and I sweat more than anyone I've ever met, and it was rough. So again, I can only imagine that amplified by 5, right? Whew.
I have arthritis, gout, lymphedema, diabetes.
I wouldn't be surprised if this is all a result of metabolic syndrome, which can develop from being overweight to this degree. A lot of people, when I even talked about bariatric surgery on some of my past videos, were quite critical of me for saying that bariatric surgery can be an option for somebody. But for somebody like this, who is struggling to move around because of arthritis, because of legitimate medical conditions, she's unable to take care of herself on her own. So yes, bariatric surgery can be a life changer, a lifesaver in many cases. While I don't think it's appropriate in all cases, far from all cases, I think you need to be open-minded that in medicine, the selection for the treatment depends on the individual patient in front of you. And this patient, for now at least, it makes sense.
100%. And I really think that Dr. Mike did a fantastic, like, I've already seen this video. I think he did a fantastic job in the way that he approached this. Like, I genuinely think he did a really good job. And I can agree with everything that he said there. I personally think that there's nothing wrong, and I would never shame anyone for getting a weight loss surgery. But I've always said that the way that I see it is it should be the last option, because it's surgery. It's serious, right? Like there are always, I think he talks about it later in the video, but like if anything is actually going to work when it comes to like medications or surgeries, there's always going to be risks involved. Always. And so there are always going to be risks involved with weight loss surgery, and so it should be taken very seriously. But just because it should be taken very seriously doesn't mean that it shouldn't happen for some people. I just think that if you are going to go down that route, every other option should be explored to the greatest extent that you can. Unless you're at a point where, you know, your weight is going to take your life very soon. Obviously, that's very different. But if it's not, I personally recommend trying to find any other way, because surgery is serious and a lot of times it's irreversible, right? But again, that's just my opinion.
As a kid, I was never overweight. It wasn't until my early 20s that my weight started to be a problem.
That's crazy to me, because and this is going to show my bias, but I would have assumed that this was someone that had gained weight their entire life, but that's not what happened. And so I could only imagine what it must feel like for her to have lived a quote unquote regular life for, 20 years and then be in this position now where you feel like it's been taken away from you. Regardless of if you think that that's her fault or not, it's still hard, right?
I tried to break up with my boyfriend at the time. He lost it, and he took me hostage. He held me at gunpoint, and I thought I was gonna die.
A lot of folks rush to judge people. Many feel like fat shaming is appropriate because they view someone who is obese as lazy. People have true problems, medically related and psychologically related. This person dealt with a traumatic situation, and perhaps that is the cause of the start of this condition. So to judge someone unfairly just by simply writing them off as lazy is unfair, and that's why we're against fat shaming on this channel.
I can't stand, like, the whole fat shaming works is one of the lowest tier, in my opinion, ways to motivate someone. I think that I just personally don't agree with it. I think that people that claim that it works just like want to be mean, and they want to have a reason to fat shame someone, and they want to have a reason to, to feel better than, because they think, oh, I'm better than this person. I can shame this person because I am superior in some way. I personally, it never worked with me, because guess what? When I was fat, guess who knew? Me. Guess who was very intimate with that knowledge? Me. Guess who didn't need other people telling me, hey, did you know you're fat? Oh, whoa. I am? For real? Wow, I had no idea. Thank you so much for the knowledge. I will do my best with the information you've just given me, right? Like, I knew. Surprise. Wow, it's crazy. I wasn't blind.
I was too scared to leave the house. I lived in constant fear. When I just ate, I'm a junk food junkie.
A lot of times when you eat those types of foods, they can increase temporarily some neurotransmitters in your brain that help you feel good. So it almost becomes a type of self-medication when you start binging foods like that, especially the junk foods.
She don't lose the weight. I'm afraid this she'll pass.
It's a very reasonable concern to have when someone is of that size, because you're putting tremendous strain on every organ in your body. And it's an unnatural strain as well.
And I know that there are people that have watched this video, Dr. Mike's video, this video right now. They're going to say, well, you should just stop feeding her, right? You should just stop giving. That, again, yes, that would work. In a perfect world, if this was like a vacuum and that was the only thing going on, it's like, just stop giving the person food. Yeah, but it's just not that simple. Like, relationships and the complex, like, reasoning for where someone is in their life is not as simple as, oh, just stop bringing them McDonald's. Problem solved. It's just not that simple. It isn't. Like, if you're looking at the math, yeah, sure. But I'm sorry, real life is more than just math equations and, like, figuring out caloric deficits and, like, oh, they just need, it's not that simple.
Expecting arrival of Marla McCants. From what I understand, she may be close to 800 pounds. If she's that big, She should have used bariatric ambulance with medical care to go with her. She should not have come to Houston on her own. She should have waited for a safer option.
Yeah, I agree, but at the same time, that safer option may be unaffordable to most people. That's why, as a doctor, you can't just make recommendations. You have to make recommendations with the patient in mind. Do they want to do this? Can they afford to do this? Is this service even available to them?
I can already see that she is in one of the worst condition health-wise I ever.
I don't know. It's interesting to me because like this show, I see stuff like that. Like these shows, I know they're entertaining to people and people like watching them and it's fine. But it's like if this show is going to profit off of this woman's story, why would you not just get them the ambulance if this is really going to cause a I don't understand it. TLC has enough money to pay for an ambulance ride. I don't understand. Just like, I'm sorry, I'm going to go on a rant, but when they have these people on these shows and they end up losing the weight and keeping it off, and then they have massive amounts of loose skin, why won't these shows just pony up the money and help them get that surgery? Because they've made a ton of money off of these people. A ton. I personally think it's messed up. Like, I really, really do.
For a prolonged trip like that with lack of mobility, her chance of developing a blood clot goes through the roof. And why is that dangerous? Because a blood clot is more likely to happen in the lower extremities. Then if that clot travels in the circulation back to the heart and then to the lungs and gets stuck there, you develop a pulmonary embolism, which cuts off blood supply to the lung. And essentially that part of the lung starts dying. You could see how that could quickly become fatal.
I can't move my leg.
Your leg hurt? Look at that, a little bit swelling, huh?
Well, that swelling could be as a result of the DVT, that clot we just talked about, or it could be her lymphedema acting up.
We're gonna run some tests to find out what may be going on with you.
The test that they're usually running in these situations would be a Doppler ultrasound of the lower extremities, which is an ultrasound to check for blood flow in the lower extremities to see if everything's opened, if all the blood vessels are open, and then also a D-dimer test. And sometimes if they suspect that the clot has already traveled to the lungs, we can do a special type of CAT scan. Back to the show in just a second, but first I want
Shout out to Dr. Mike and your ad, but we're gonna skip through it a little bit. Sorry.
for free by visiting ZipRecruiter.com/Dr. Mike. Remember, doctor is spelled out. All right, let's get back to the show.
So it says right here, during the night, Maria suddenly stopped breathing.
Okay, so that could potentially mean that, one, obviously the pulmonary embolism we just talked about, but also a lot of stress on her heart. Something could have happened there, congestive heart failure-wise. But also patients that are of her size do develop sleep apnea where they stop breathing for periods of time, but usually it's not to the point where their heart stops as well.
She pushed her body to the limit for years.
It's crazy, man. Like, it's wild that I don't even know. I don't know if this thought makes any sense, but how close she is to death while at home, but because she's, set up her life to where it is able to sustain her, that I don't want to say simple, but it was a long drive, but even just that, right, has put her at such risk. Like, it's terrifying. Like, it genuinely is scary. And I remember the reason that these stories and stuff always make me kind of emotional and, like, I don't know, it hits different for lack of a better term, is like, I remember vividly when I was at my heaviest, like, this genuinely being a fear of mine. Like, having that crazy moment where I need to go to the hospital and I've become so large that I cannot get out of my house, that I need help getting out of my house. Like, that, it wasn't like that would be crazy. It was in my head, this is going to happen eventually. Like, that's where I was mentally. This is going to happen eventually. And that was terrifying. But I was at a point where I just accepted it. And so this stuff, like, always just, oh, man.
And the car ride down was just too much for her to handle. We need to get her to surgery immediately to put a filter in her.
So what he's talking about here is an IVC filter, which is an inferior vena cava filter, which is meant to be put into the vein in order to catch and act like a net for clots that could potentially leave the lower body and come up to the lungs, so it prevents them from reaching the lungs. Now, usually we do this only as a secondary resort, because in patients who have blood clots, we usually put them on blood thinning agents, unless there is a true contraindication for starting the blood thinners, or that they scan her legs and they see so many clots there that they don't even think that they can dissolve them. In this case, I'm not sure why they decided to go with the IVC filter instead of blood thinning agents, but they could be doing both at the same time. That's also been done in the past as well.
And I'm currently placing the filter in the vena cava. This is a delicate operation, so we have to do this very carefully, but it will help save Marla's life.
It's important to point out, because I don't think Dr. Now is making this very clear, this isn't the treatment to save her life. This is a treatment to prevent another clot from happening and dislodging again and going to the lungs. And also, it's not 100% effective.
Marla recovered shortly after her surgery and has been in the hospital on a diet restricted to 1,000 calories per day, which is, oof. I know that's for the surgery and stuff, but oh, that'd be freaking hard, man.
That's a very aggressive diet. I don't know if she needed that aggressive of a diet right off the bat. Even eating 2,000 calories a day would cause weight loss. I don't think you needed it to be so extreme.
I mean, even eating probably 3,000, and not even probably, would make weight loss happen 100%. 1,000 is very low.
Having to adjust to a controlled diet. They've been trying to get me up to walk. I feel like they're pushing me too hard.
So one of the orders that we almost always put in for patients that are hospitalized for extended periods of time is ambulate with assistance, ambulate at least from out of bed to chair, because that allows the patient to decrease the likelihood of developing clots. It helps facilitate the recovery, starts working the cardiovascular system, because a patient who's so deconditioned, meaning not used to moving around, needs to gradually work their way up in order to return to be able to have some level of independence.
Yeah, I see people like commenting in the chat about like the 1,000 calories. Again, I think that's low. I would never recommend that for anybody, right? Obviously, she is in the hospital being supervised by professionals. I personally, again, that's super crazy low. But, you know, she is being supervised. I just don't know enough about it to like have a strong opinion, really. So that's why, you know, I have my thoughts, but I don't really know how much it would really weigh in this whole situation. So that's why, yeah. And it says here on the screen, the physical therapists and all available staff have been called to Marla's room to help her stand up.
Hi. When someone becomes immobile, they get used to others doing everything for them.
All right, are we ready?
That can be a tough dynamic to change.
Okay, you ready?
Yeah.
Okay, I'm gonna bring this one first.
But we're going to do what we can to try.
You ready? All right.
The rest will be up to Marla.
Push. I'm falling. Please.
It's okay, we got you.
If Marla won't get up, then we can't treat her.
Yeah, being able to move and carry your own body weight is very important in order to have success of any surgery. Because again, you need to have your heart strong enough to be able to do that. Part of my risk stratification for preoperative screening is finding out what a patient's activity levels are like. What are they able to do? For example, if a patient actively exercises, they're automatically a lower risk versus a patient who's sedentary, doesn't exercise, gets winded just by walking a block, that patient automatically becomes higher risk. When I say higher risk, I mean higher risk for their heart stopping. Like, that's the risk I'm talking about.
This is stuff like, this is why just moving is so important and why I get so annoyed when people are like, oh, walking isn't good enough. Dude, walking is the most underrated form of exercise and movement, I think, in the world, at least in the Western world where we're obsessed with exercise, because you can walk. I mean, everyone's different, but like the amount that you can walk and the steps that you can take are way more than how long you could go on a run for, right? Especially if you're very out of shape, you can walk for a while. Walking is so valuable and it can help so much, and you should never feel like, oh, I only am able to walk. If you're able to walk, then walk. Like, that's my advice.
I'm going to go ahead and perform weight loss surgery, because outside of this, she has no hope. Gastric bypass surgery will reduce size of stomach and also bypass part of intestine. The stomach is as big as a watermelon, With this operation, we're going to reduce size of stomach to a size of small orange.
This sounds and looks barbaric because it is, but it's an extreme measure to potentially save a person's life. This is why we don't recommend bariatric surgery from someone who's only somewhat overweight. Every treatment has risks. In fact, if a treatment doesn't have risks, it likely in the beginning never had any potential benefit anyway.
Marla is demonstrating very poor attitude and very poor response.
I mean, that's like, that's why most supplements, I mean, you don't have to worry too much about most supplements because they ain't doing nothing. So they ain't going to hurt you that much, you know, unless you're taking pre-workout. You have to be careful. But that's why, like, dog, oh, man. Okay, I don't want to get into that rant.
This is him very dysfunctional behavior. She's stubborn like that. If she act like a kid, you treat her like a kid.
It's a very controversial way to be a physician. I find that I've had success with other motivational techniques, making a healthier connection with your patient, using motivational interviewing techniques. Granted, it doesn't work all the time. Patient needs to know there's consequences for their actions. You could tell the doctor now is getting a little bit offended, getting a little irritated. Pulling yourself out of that situation is probably ideal because now, while you're using this old school, like hardened type of mentality, it doesn't work for all people and can actually have the patient turn against you.
I'm hoping that sending her home will be a wake-up call.
So here it says, at Sierra's request, Dr. Now has made a house call to see Marla for one final attempt to get her out of bed.
But I wonder why they need Dr. Now for this. Dr. Now is not a rehabilitation specialist. Maybe getting her in with a mental health specialist would have probably been the best thing here. And while Dr. Now could be a great bariatric surgeon, he's clearly not a mental health specialist. He's clearly not a rehab specialist. And while all of his advice medically makes sense, he's clearly not being effective in communicating that message and getting the patient to take care of her best interests. Getting another team member here would go a long way in helping her perhaps find her inner motivation to want to stand up.
So for me, I'm always kind of curious about this because obviously Dr. Now is a doctor and he's, you know, world renowned in what he does. But I wonder, where's the separation from I am a doctor and I do doctor things versus I'm on this show. I am like basically the main character or one of the main parts of the show. And so I am, you know, turning on the Dr. Now for the TV show, you know, and like, how I'm just always curious how mean or rude is he when the cameras are off? Is he completely different or is this really how he is? I don't know. I'm sure the only people that do know are, you know, the patients that have been on the show. But it's just something that I think about. Like, is this really how he would act if there were no cameras? I don't know. I really don't know.
Here we go. All right. Keep pushing your weight on. Oh. Okay. All right.
Okay.
Good job, Marla.
Yeah. I didn't think I could get up.
You want to try it again?
Yeah, we can.
This is the time and tested true method, time tested true time tested method of motivation doesn't come first. It's doing the action and then the motivation follows. Like her saying, I want to do it again.
That, dude, that is such a good point that I cannot even explain. I get asked all the time, I don't have motivation. What do I do? And like, I can only respond in my experience. And in my experience, I was more motivated once I started losing the weight. And when I saw that I lost 20 pounds, I was like, what the heck? Holy crap. I can actually do this. And then when I lost 30 pounds and then 40 pounds, like I was so motivated by the results that I was seeing from doing the thing. Like that is the perfect way to explain it. It is the perfect way to explain it. Like when it comes to working out, I am motivated because I see results. If I never saw results, then yeah, it would be hard to be motivated. And the one thing that's good about that is that when you are starting to work out, you see results a lot faster than me, who's been working out for 10 years. Like, to see results and see changes, it takes a freaking long time now. But I don't struggle with motivation because I've seen those results. And I'm at a point now, this is kind of going off on a tangent, where I don't need motivation. It's become a habit. Just like I don't need motivation to brush my teeth. I don't need motivation to cut my hair into a mullet. I just do it because it's part of my day.
There you
Keep
go.
going, keep going, keep going.
Keep going. You're almost there.
Keep going, you're almost there.
All right.
There you go.
Wow. Wow.
She's lost 266 pounds. Jeez.
Great weight loss.
I'm so proud of myself. Makes me feel like I can do anything.
About 300 pounds less, huh? Can you tell the difference?
Yeah.
Breathing is probably easier for her because your lungs cannot fully expand against all of that excess skin, weight, and as a result, parts of your lungs actually die off through a process called atelectasis.
So when can I get skin surgery?
From what I can tell, you're not making much effort to get better.
That's your opinion. I don't think I have a very good,
So the editing on this was a little strange when I first watched it. I was a little confused. They've kind of fast forwarded quite a bit. She's lost even more weight, and she has, like, they'll show she has a lot of loose skin. So they're kind of arguing back and forth about that. But there's like a pretty big gap between the last thing we just saw and where they are now. So if you got a little confused, I did too when I first watched it. So I just wanted to explain that.
understanding with you and you don't have one with me.
I think that's a very fair assessment. He's jumping to conclusions, it seems like, all the time. As a doctor, you need to be doing this as a team, like a collaborative approach, not just with you and the patient, but you, the patient, the physical therapist. You have to be getting the reports. If the reports were coming in from the physical therapist, that patient's not interested in doing this, that's one thing. But my suspicion is he's making assumptions based on her weight or lack of progress. Now, you need to be investigating this lack of progress, where it's coming from. You can't just make assumptions.
Well, what's really crazy about this is that actually after this video was posted, Dr. Now challenged Dr. Mike to a boxing match. So I think that's going to be happening soon. I could not believe it when I first heard about it.
5,000 patients in past 40 years. I don't remember I've seen anybody 6 months after surgery that haven't been able to walk.
You're putting me in a
My
group.
opinion is
You're
based
putting
on my
me in a group. You
experience.
can't put me with nobody else.
You got a bad attitude.
And why do I have a bad
Disapprecciation.
attitude?
Time out, Dr. Now. Separate yourself. You can have this same exact conversation, same theme, same message that he's trying to get across without ever getting mad. You are literally doing the opposite of de-escalating the situation.
Again, whenever I see these, I'm like, how real was that interaction? Was that even real? Do they even feel that way about each other? Or were the producers like, yo, we need some spice to happen, so we're gonna, let's talk about this thing. And how do you, I don't know, man. I don't know.
Feel you don't treat me fair or
Marla, I can't do any more for you.
Okay.
See your primary doctor, ask him tomorrow to find another surgeon because
already have.
we are dismissing you from our care.
The patient makes a statement.
I feel you don't treat me fair or
Marla,
You need to explore that as a physician. What do you mean by that? Patient will say, I want this skin surgery and you're not giving this to me. I can then say to the patient, I would love to give you the skin surgery, but I know that if we do it before you start walking, ultimately it's gonna harm you. My goal here is to treat you, not to treat your skin. It's to make you as healthy as a person as possible and not put you into negative situations or dangerous situations. Isn't that what you want for yourself as well? You see how we just all got on the same page? That might not work the first time. That might have to take multiple things, but that's why you gotta be patient. You gotta be patient with your patients.
I finally found
Dude, that he explained that unbelievably well. And it is true. Like I've always said that if you want to get loose skin surgery, 100%, like you should do it. I'm not here to tell you you shouldn't, but just make sure, one, you're at a point. I think the most important thing is that you are at a point where you've lost the weight and you've kept it off for a while, because the surgery is freaking intense. Like really, really intense, and you are going to be immobile for quite a while, and it's going to be really hard for you to move. It's going to be really hard to eat. It's going to be really hard to want to eat well. It makes it very difficult. And there are a lot of people that get the weight loss or get the loose skin surgery and they put weight back on after it. And I just think it's a smart idea to wait. Again, I understand the amount of loose skin she has is a lot. And I'm not saying like she has to wait or anything like that. Everyone's different. But I just think as a baseline, waiting a little bit longer is not going to, I don't know, I guess it could hurt some people if you're having issues. Like if you're having real issues like medical, you're having like you know, sores or anything like that, fungus or stuff like that, then okay. But like if it's just like oh, it's just something that annoys me. I think waiting a little bit until you have a routine and you know that you can keep the weight off is just a good way to go about it. But it is, I don't know, everyone's different, and it's really hard to say that to someone that's really struggling with it. And I would never tell someone like, no, you have to wait. But I understand where they're coming from with that.
The clinic here in Nashville to help me keep making progress with my weight loss. I hope I made it below 400 pounds.
Look at that. Look at the difference there. That is insane. She's standing up on her own. Like, just imagine the, like, I can't even imagine what it would feel like mentally to go from where she was before to where she's at now, standing on her own. Like,
Wow.
364.
And she's standing.
436 pounds lost. 436 pounds lost. She literally lost almost 100 pounds more than I was ever even at my heaviest. Like, that's unreal.
Ms. McCants. Nice to see you. Well, you have made astounding progress, and if you can lose that next 100 pounds, then you can have all the extra skin taken off.
If you do the skin surgery also too early, you then still lose more weight. You'll need more surgery. It means more scars, more complications. You also have to be understanding that having excess skin makes it challenging to mobilize and move around. Be understanding and say, I understand that this is terrible, but we're gonna have to keep moving through this. So what ways can I help you? Maybe you can get them outfit recommendations, compression stockings, whatever it is to try and help your patient achieve their goals.
Once I get this skin off of me and nothing's holding me back anymore, I'm gonna travel and see the world.
Genuinely, her life has changed. Her opportunities have expanded greatly. And I'm not talking about her opportunities to travel the world, that's cool, but her ability to move to the kitchen, her ability to prepare food for herself, that if one of her kids gets sick, she could still care for her daily needs. Imagine that if one of her kids can't come, she would have to not be able to shower and potentially get infections, then get hospitalized. It's not a quality of life that is reasonable. So that's why bariatric surgery absolutely needs to exist, at least for now. We need to be open-minded to its risks and be aware of its risks and not overuse it as a treatment.
We can't wait to show you how she looks now. Please welcome Miss Marla McCants.
Wow.
You're not alone. You can overcome your struggles and fears. You can overcome. You can do it. I did it.
Yes.
You can do it.
Post-traumatic growth right there. Someone went through a terrible situation, both initially with her partner, but now also a traumatic situation with her weight, and now she's a role model for people. She's using that trauma to grow from, to help others grow. Yay, I'm Team Marla. Actually, not too long ago, I was accused of being fatphobic on Reddit. Click here for that video where I sort of explain my stance. I think it's a worthwhile watch. And again, huge thank you to ZipRecruiter for sponsoring this video.
So, I mean, that's the video. Again, I think that Dr. Mike did an incredible job with how he responded to it. I think that Marla's story is absolutely insane. Obviously, it's like on the crazier end of the spectrum, but I think that I'm just really happy for her, and it's crazy to see someone that was at a point where they literally could not get out of bed, and then to a point where they're walking around and they're being on TV shows and stuff. So that's the video. I would love to know what you have to say down in the comment section down below. If you want to drop a comment, if you want to leave a like, that always helps. But yeah, I'll see you next time. Peace.